Yes, everybody, Russ from the West Ham Network, and Anton. Hope you're safe and well. Irish Tommy is working late tonight, so we are stepping into his Irish boots for the late show.
Good evening, everyone. Hope you're well. It's been a while. It's been a while since we've done a live. It's been a while since we've done a live at night time as well,
and together as well,
and together, and on a Friday evening. God, that brings back many memories.
Certainly does. And as I said, we are doing the late show instead of Irish Tommy this week. He'll be back next week, hopefully, but he's working late. Bless him.
Yes.
So hopefully he's listening, and we do him proud for his slot. But yeah, I mean, we'll talk. We'll get on to what we want to talk about in a bit. In terms of today's evening's subject, so to speak. But yeah, a bit of a topsy-turvy week for West Ham, as per usual.
Oh man, what a difference a year makes.
It is
what a difference a year makes. I mean, I think it was the year since we played Lyon at Lyon. Yeah. They're showing all the clips and bloody hell, man, Dawson's header and memories just that'll live on forever. And then what a transfer.
Completely changed, isn't it? It's completely changed
situation. I jumped on and done a little review of the game. I know you'd done something similar today. I'm just a bit, I don't know where I'm at, to be honest. I can't remember the last time we actually played reasonably well. I would say Nottingham.
But
I don't think we played.
Even that was 15 minutes. You played well for 15 minutes.
I thought we actually played really okay-ish in the whole game, but really good for 15 minutes. Whereas I don't think we actually played well at all in the Southampton game. I don't think we played, apart from maybe 5 minutes here, there, and everywhere. and then the same in the Fulham game.
Yeah,
couple of minutes here, there, and everywhere. But take that pressure on board, Russ. We take that pressure. We'll get destroyed by Arsenal. We'll get destroyed by Man City. It will take a miracle for that not to happen. But I have faith in. I don't know where I'm getting this faith from, because I think the faith is coming in the system that what you see year in and year out. I think the faith is coming from the fact that at some point a club can hit form, and at some point a club can drop form, and that kind of resonates with the West Ham Arsenal game as such. You know, we're not on form. We haven't played well. We're slipping up. We're slipping up the point here and everywhere. Arsenal haven't really dipped. Had the odd dip, and they're capable of dipping. We've seen them dip before. But I am concerned, because if we even remotely do what we did, if we turn up and do what we did, we could get absolutely torn to shreds.
I know what you mean. It's almost like, I mean, the trouble is, because we've been West Ham fans for so long, it happens. There is that game. There is that once or twice a season, regardless of how shit our seasons have been, where we turn up. And it hasn't. And we haven't had that. We haven't had that yet. We haven't had that. It's usually Spurs, isn't it? It's usually Spurs at home or Spurs away. We turn up, but we haven't had that sort of peak yet. And I mean, we've won. I mean, as I covered Moyes' press conference, he's particularly buoyant about Sunday. I don't know where the fuck he's got this from, this blind faith, thinking we've had some good games against Arsenal. We haven't won in 1 in 29 or something ridiculous like that against Arsenal.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know where it's come from.
When I say faith, it's faith coming from the fact that I'm just try to remain positive. Like, I can't go into each game fearing the worst, because that doesn't do me well as a West Ham fan. I get what most fans say. I get where we're at. I understand that, Kimball. I get where we're at as a club, but I can't mentally think of West Ham getting beat, because it doesn't do me. It doesn't do me good personally. So I have to think on the positive mindset, even though I know that there's a strong possibility it's going to be really tough. But we have been there, done that, wore the t-shirt. I said it when we done the debate with Gatesheet the other night. You know, you can only play what's in front of you. Like, people have underestimated the Conference League, and you know, to go 10 games and win 10 games is a very good feat. I'm just disappointed in the manner we took the game again.
Yeah,
but I understand it in the weirdest way possible. Well, I don't understand it, Russ. I understand the result, but we can give more than that.
That's the thing. I think Gent. We weren't fault. Again, and I know it pisses off some people, but we are quite a positive channel, naturally. And looking at the positives, we didn't play our full side. Gent had their full side out, and even so, when they took off Auburn, they brought on, and Mikey helped us with the players. The guy they brought on was like their rapid forward.
Yeah.
So they were trying to win the game, and they threw everything. 20 shots on target, yada yada yada. They won. They hit the post. Granted, good shot, good bicycle kick from Auburn. First half, nothing really to note. I think if we turn up full side on Thursday, crowd behind us, blow them away. I really think we could. But saying that, they did put. I think didn't they put 5 past Istanbul away from home last.
That's fine as well saying that. But equally though, like when you look at West Ham with a full strength team out against the likes of Fulham, against the likes of Southampton, we haven't blown anyone away. The last team, like I said, I mean, the inconsistencies are really frustrating me a little bit now. Yeah. And Moyes has gone on and said, it's just how you are, Anton. I'm the same. I always think positively with the team. I get that. But I think the thing with Moyes, he always goes on about consistency. He did it for 2 seasons. He said it, stuck in our brains, left, right, and centre. And then, let's go back to Larnaca, 4-0, 16th of March, where we beat them at home. Lanzini was phenomenal in that game. He's not played a single minute of football since. I don't even think he came off the bench, did he? Again, he didn't play against Southampton. He didn't feature against Newcastle. He didn't play against Fulham. We've had an international break. He's not featured at all, and then bang, he's put into the starting lineup against Ghent. So as much as I'm glad that he got the position, he didn't play well, but he's had no football for a month. He's had nothing for a month. Like no competitive edge is the point I'm trying to make. Nothing, not even a substitute appearance. I'm just trying to reference, and I agreed, Lanzini didn't have a good game. He was ineffective. But then I'm like, well, no bloody wonder he had an effective game because he's not played a competitive game of football for one solid month.
But then he hasn't done throughout this season. So he hasn't. So he's turned up. I mean, I know you. I know a lot of you think. I think you're sort of quite positive in terms of him. I think he's gone. I think his legs are gone. I think he's suited to a European game. I think he'll get chewed up in the Premier League at the moment.
But he wasn't suited to the game yesterday.
No, he weren't.
To the game yesterday. But I think when I was sitting with my dad watching the game, and I was thinking to myself, like, what the like? I don't understand this consistent approach. Like. It doesn't make sense. Why are you not giving Corny a run out? I don't understand that.
No, I didn't get that. No.
Of that. You're switching up the formation again. So with what intention? People are digging out Ben Johnson. I can't stick up for his performances as of late, but I swear to God, Russ, man management of the boy hasn't been great. It's not been great. Like he has been, he was in the team consistently, and then suddenly out of the team, and then asked to play so many different positions, and it's ridiculous. And sorry for him, and I think his head's gone. I don't think his head's gone from the club. I think his head's gone from football. Do you know what's really funny? After thanks to Newham for bookstores, I don't know if you've seen it, but they had a couple of signed copies of Mark Noble book. I bought it. I hadn't bought it yet, and I was always going to buy it, but I bought it, and I got it today. I'm like 78 pages in, and it's really interesting listening to his story from being a young lad and coming through the ranks, and how he gets consistently let down from not let down as a manager because he praises Pardew, but how he gets let down in terms of you're in the team, you're out the team, you're in the team,
yeah.
And he said, he explains how mentally he couldn't deal with it. He couldn't deal with it. He couldn't. And I think Ben Johnson could be that's what's happening with Ben Johnson right now. And when he's in the team, he says it's so frustrating. I was put out in the left wing. I was put out in the right wing, and I kept saying to Pards, put me in the middle. He said he would actually become annoying at that. And I think this is one of the biggest issues we've got right now.
There was a great thing that Arteta said in his press conference, which I picked up on the where basically he was talking about. Obviously, Arteta played under Moyes at Everton, and the quote, I can't find it now typically, but it was basically he put me in positions I didn't know I could play. So it's like it doesn't change. It don't change you, boys. He'll throw you in any position he can to get you in the side. But no, it's. I mean, that's the trouble. In out. And I mean, people were saying obviously. I mean, last year, I think the fact is we had such a small squad much smaller squad last year. So we were playing the games, the European games, and the Premier League games, sort of with almost the same side, bar one or two players, rather than half the side out, 9 players out. So there was that consistency. The trouble is towards the end when we needed those extra reinforcements, we didn't have them, so we tired towards the end of that season. Yeah. But I think that's been the thing. It's almost like our squad is, I think, too big now. Yeah. And I think now we've got a situation where we've got too many players, and so we do play them for the European games, and then there's no consistency because then they won't play next week as well. Yeah. They won't play on the Saturday, and I think that leads on quite nicely to the topic we were going to talk about tonight. For the second year, there is going to be a major rebuild in the summer, and. Personally, I think a lot of it's down to poor management in terms of contracts, because we shouldn't have a situation where you've got 6 or 7 players, or I think it's 5 players now, who are first teamers, regular first teamers, who are coming to the end of their contracts. You shouldn't have that. You should have a situation where where it's there might be 1 or 2, but not 5 or 6, not half a dozen.
Yeah. No.
And that
not so once.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then, I mean, I think Palace had it 2 years ago. Was it last season? They had 10 or 11 players out of contracts in the summer. Yeah. That shouldn't happen.
And it should be in advance. We talk about all the signings we've had. I think it was a Gatesy put in a big voice note, PHS voice note about what the situation is in terms of bringing on all these players. At some points I agreed with, some points I didn't agree with it, what he said. I think there are really good players we've brought in. I really do. Yeah. I think the problem is we've brought them all in at once. Yeah. And I think that the issue we had was some of them should have been brought in January before, 1,000,000% when we didn't sign anybody, and the summer before. If we didn't, let's just say for talking sake, we brought in 2 of those players the summer before, 2 of those players in the winter, they would be bedded in. They would be used to the situation. We wouldn't be 1 year behind ourselves. And then suddenly we find ourselves bringing 8 players into the mold, and bang, on top of that, we've got other players that we've allowed the contracts to run that low. The age of the players that we're talking about are quite high in terms of footballing terms. So we're sitting there now with a squad of players. We could lose 5 players on contracts alone.
Yeah, I mean we'll go through them, and I mean we'll go through them all. I think, and Kimbo makes a good point. I think and I think a lot of it is the fact of players falling out with the manager. I think that's not surprising. I think it's not surprising. We're not digging up any trees now. There is dissension in the ranks. There is dissension in the ranks within the squad and the management. That's been regularly put out in the press. So it hasn't been shut down by anyone. So I think that's the case, and I think it could well start with the manager in the summer. I think that's sort of what seems to be the narrative coming out, that Moisey will go off into the sunset in the summer, possibly retiring, is what we're hearing, and maybe with a European trophy in his back pocket. And I think that would probably be lovely for everyone, and particularly if we're still in the Premier League. And I think with that, obviously there's a lot, as you said, a lot of players are coming to the end of their contracts. Obviously, considering our precarious position at the moment, those contracts aren't negotiated with at the moment, because we don't know whether we're going to give them Premier League, way we're going to offer them a contract, and if we are, what wages are we going to give them to? Are we going to give them Premier League wages because we're in the Premier League, or are we going to give them Championship wages? Are they going to then fuck off to somewhere else? And so we'll run down the list and give you what we've heard in terms of any narrative. So let's go with this one. So we'll start with Lanzini. There we go. It's better. So Manu Lanzini, as a lot of people have been saying in the chat, it's widely been reported that he's gone in the summer, and that might be why there's there's been some people in the chat been saying maybe there's a disillusionment because Moyes don't fancy him anymore. He doesn't like, he knows that Moyes he's going to leave in the summer. River Plate is the club we're hearing he's going to go to in the summer. Apparently they did try and have a look for him in January, but that was turned down in advance because they wanted to basically give him to us for free, give him to them for free, and that wasn't going to happen, or some minimal thing. So, and as you said, Lanzini, I think he's you think about him, he's got a young family now, moving back to his homeland. His dad, I think, was on Argentinian telly a few months ago, saying how he wants to go. They haven't spoken, the club or Moisey or anyone at the club has not spoken to him about the contract renewal. So that looks like the first one pretty much out the door.
I have more faith in Lanzini than, like, for example, you do.
You do,
and that's only down to the fact that I think he's got some form of something. He, in my opinion, he can still offer West Ham something even in the Premier League, but that is how he is managed. I would be disappointed to think that he wants out for negative reasons. I just don't put Lanzini in that pocket, in that shelf. I put him in the shelf of going, right, I've had my Premier League stint. I've done really well. He has done well. He's going to go down. He's going to be well remembered for many years, a West Ham fan.
Yeah, we'll go through all the games at the end in terms of all the games they played for. But yeah, he's been around for a long time, hasn't he? But obviously been injured for a lot as well.
Yeah, he has. Yeah, absolutely. And he's given us some of the best memories, individual goals, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Tottenham twice, actually, didn't he? He done the one in London Stadium, the home leg.
Yeah,
as well. The home tie years ago. But I think essentially, when it comes to Lanzini, for him to go back to his home country, I mean, it depends. I mean, we're hearing all this sort of stuff. It could be his dad saying, "I want you back," and he might be going, "Well, I'm settled, Dad. I've lived in London. I've got a life in London here."
I think he's out the door, mate.
But no. I'm not talking about West Ham. I'm talking about another club. It's just whether or not he wants to go back to Argentina. I agree with you. I think he's definitely out the door, 100%.
Yeah, I think he is. I think he's. He's told. I think he's been told, and West Ham's coming you on. As said, he reckons he's been told by the club he's gone. And I think there's certain ones. I mean, there's certain players who are coming to the end of their contracts, or where I think there is obviously options, and again we'll go through that as well in terms of what's available, what they're going to be having. But there's been no option. There's been no discussion with Lanzini about a contract. The club don't take any options for him. Antonio's obviously a slightly different one. He obviously was, I think he was flattering his eyelashes a bit with the likes of Wolves and Nottingham Forest in January, looking to leave the club. Obviously talking about it in his podcast as well. There's been a lot of controversy about him and his podcast, I think, amongst the fan base. And I imagine exactly. I imagine that has permeated with the team as well, because they're all young lads and social media and things.
And to be fair, Russ, you were not enamored by it from the start. I actually wasn't that offended by it, but the more I thought about it recently, in particular, I've realized, I am actually like, no, it's not. There's a time and a place, and this is not the time or the place.
Yeah, no, it is. And I think in the summer makes sense, but I think when it's in the game, I mean, that's why I don't mind Ben Foster's, because he was, until recently, obviously, he was out the game. So there was, and I think even when he was in the game, it wasn't intrusive. It was more experience, particularly the GoPro stuff was more experience led. So fans can feel part of the being in the goal and all that type of things, and the Fozcast was always very good and well received. But by the sounds of it, there's a bit of a rift about him internally as well, and I think he'll be gone in the summer. And so
I think what we need to remember with players like maybe Antonio, for example, will be he may get a bit of a reality check as well in terms of where his career's at, and who may come in for him or not come in for him if he does decide to leave. If we go down, there's no ifs or buts about it. We do not want to be letting Antonio go.
Yeah.
If we go down, but I don't want to think of us going down. But
no.
But that's the only way I look at keeping him. But if we stay up, which I'm hoping for, we are. You know what? Thanks, Antonio. Much appreciated for giving us, the career you've given us. But the time now is to move on.
I mean, there's some interesting things about Kimbo. He's a diamond for us over recent years, but time to move on. Mickey thinks he's struggled since September, like a couple of years, and I think he probably has. He's not the beast that he was. He's not. and I've been quite critical. I mean, people have. I mean, I'm not particularly critical on players in general, but for him, I really was, because I know what he could bring. I remember seeing him swatting off Wolves defenders and just being an absolute beast of a man, and he just isn't. And again, he's come out in the press and said, I want competition. I want competition. Gets competition. Doesn't like it. Starts throwing his play. I'm not getting game time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think, Mickey makes a point. Maybe it's something to do with the international break. Since he became an international with Jamaica, it did seem that his form dipped. I don't know if it was a coincidence or. So I think I think the club will be looking to probably get the money. I think he paid 7 million for him when we signed him from Forest. So I think around 7 to 10 million, I think, will be a good price for him, I think, to be honest.
Yeah. Listen, I mean, like you said, there's a time and a place when you do the things he's done, and I think maybe there is an element of unrest in the changing room. A lot of people are saying that now, but I think also a bit of man management around him hasn't been great. Maybe he's been fed some stuff about, you're going to be the main man, and then suddenly you're not. I think this is the thing that West Ham, if we're going to try and transition into this club that we want to be in terms of being bigger, challenging for bigger things, we're going to have a better quality of player, a higher standard of player, with a higher standard of maybe opinion of themselves. Therefore, we're going to have egos to manage. We couldn't manage the last time we had egos. We had Chicharito, Felipe Andersons of the world, Sebastian Haller's, all that sort of stuff. These players were all £50 million.
Yeah.
Whether they were at £50 million at that point that they played for West Ham or in their career, they were definitely that value of some sort. And we probably couldn't handle, I don't know, could the manager actually physically handle the fact that Chicharito was on, like, saying he was on the, why am I on the bench? Why am I on the bench?
Yeah.
Like, we don't seem to be able to handle these egos. I'm not saying Antonio's got it. Maybe he has a bit, but
I think he has,
we've got Scamacca, Paqueta, if they're on the bench, they sit there going, what the fuck am I doing here? Like, we're in a relegation battle and I'm sitting on the bench. Like, come on. So
you're totally right, man. I think there will be a change in the dugout in the summer. And I think it will be someone who comes in who can, as you said, manage. And I think part of this rebuild is a clear out as well. I think I think it will be a clear out, and you're right. It comes to a point where thank you for your service, but it's time to move on. And I think we keep keeping people like Antonio on the books. Is it more sentimental? Is it because he's is he keeping Divin from playing more games? Yes.
Or as Toby says, like, if you look here, I know there's loads of comments, so apologies, we're not going to be able to get through them, but it will also be a shame if he never plays a game as a winger for us again. Still think he's got something to give, but can't see it at the moment. But the element here is, if a new manager was to come in and actually go, do you know what? I'm going to keep Antonio on the books and I'm going to put him out on the left wing and he's going to be a challenge out there. He done it. I think he done it. It was against Newcastle before we went and packed, fell apart in that game. At one point, he attacked down that left-hand side, and Newcastle didn't know what to do. And there's something in that. Like, I don't know how our current manager hasn't seen that he can offer. When he's not doing well there, put him into a position he looks like he could probably offer something, and he could easily have more of a future at West Ham.
Yeah, he could do. Yeah,
under the right manager, but under current systems and the way he's going to play, time to move on.
But at present, I think he's going to be. They'll be looking to move him on to free up some funds and a place as well. No, I totally agree. Another one is Areola. Now, maybe a bit of a surprise here, but I think Areola is not happy, obviously, with basically not being number one, being brought in and not being played as number one, but instead of 39-year-old, he's basically taking his place. And obviously, he's recently lost the French number one jersey. Obviously, Lloris is retiring from France for international, and he was obviously the number two, and he isn't the number one now. He's still number two. So I think Areola is not happy at the moment as well, by the sounds of it, and he's looking to maybe move in the summer, or look for a move in the summer.
I think when it comes to Alphonse, like, how can you be him and be, right now happy So for me, it's a case of, I know we hear grumblings, but I think we can probably put 2 and 2 together and work out what the situation is.
Yeah.
I think he will hang about to see what happens.
Maybe, yeah. I think
he may be.
yeah.
I think it could be a case of, I think quite a few players may also do that as well. Let's just see what if something's going to change, because if something's going to change for us, the one decision I think we'll know is very quickly when the season's ended. We'll know quickly.
Yes.
I'll be really surprised if West Ham do typical West Ham and hold on to the boss until fucking middle of August, which would be ridiculous, you know what I mean? Or the end of July. Has to be quick. So I think someone like Areola would sit there and go, because equally, okay, he had a fantastic season with Fulham.
Yep.
He came to West Ham, and he actually had a good season at West Ham, because we've done the European tour. So essentially, he had an all right season. I think if you had to choose one, Russ, you would have rather done the European tour. You'd rather been Areola than Fabianski, to be honest.
Yeah.
Last year.
I think
if I'm being really honest, I would have. Yeah.
Yeah. I think he.
Yeah. Sorry.
I mean, he's he's at the age now where he needs to be a number one.
Yeah. He does. He absolutely does.
He's come in and he's been bought, and he's on. I think he is on the most amount. I think he's the highest wage earner, or one of them. I think him and Zuma are now. And he isn't the number one. And I mean, and I've said it before, but I don't think he's done himself any favors. But I think when Fabianski got injured, that was his time to really cement it down. But I just think there's a weird communication problem between him, Zuma, and Aged. They don't seem to communicate very well, despite the fact they all speak French as well. I think they have a better communication with Fabianski. Obviously, they played more games with him, so that's probably why. But I just think, yesterday as well, and I've been really critical on Areola. I thought his distribution was really poor yesterday, and that's something which everyone says is really good. But I thought yesterday was very poor. Yeah. And I thought for someone who's 6'4", 6'5", you don't act like he's 6'4", 6'5" around the box.
You have said that. You've always said this about Areola. I think my concern always falls back onto inconsistency in team selection. Yeah. We don't have Areola, Zuma, and Aged playing together frequently enough. And when new players come in, I can't think of players that either hit the ground running straight away, and if they do hit the ground running straight away, then they dip in some form or form. So, but 9 times out of 10, especially if you're a goalkeeper, I think off the top of my head, if you know that you're not going to be playing in 4 games' time when Fabianski's back, that could have a negative impact on you. But if you've got Areola, Aged, I mean, I'm just quickly talking about Aged for a second. I mean, the geezer had a couple of mistakes in him, right? And he's had the odd mistake here and everywhere.
Yeah.
But essentially, he looks like he's a top-notch defender, and he's got the ability, and he will hopefully grow into that position. But he's chucked out the team. He's chucked out the team. He's done more than bloody Souček's done over the last year, in a short space of time in a game. And suddenly, bang, he's out of the team. So the inconsistencies throughout our defense, and apart from recently, defense hasn't really been our issue until recently. But the inconsistencies in team selection back there have been ridiculous, particularly in defense and keeper.
Yeah, very true. And I think we've been sort of linked with a number of keepers already in the summer. Bono from Sevilla, the obviously Moroccan goalkeeper. Sorry. So obviously has a good relationship with Aged already. There's a guy from Valencia. He's got a really, really long name. He's 22, 23. He's a giant of a man. So you can see, and I think the thing is, our goalkeeper situation, we thought it was sorted, but I don't think it is sorted. I think it has been sorted because, as you said, there's 2 guys who want to play for the number 1 jersey. We know that basically Fabianski said this isn't going to be his last contract. He wants to be playing, he wants to carry on playing after his current contract. We'll talk about Fabianski in a minute. So again, it's like you've got these 2, and they're both vying for the number 1 jersey. Only one person can use it. And I don't think it's been handled very well. No. As you said, I think there's it's egos, and I think a lot of this is people wanting to be the best. They wanted to be number one. They wanted to be the first name on the team sheet. They're not, and they're not basically being managed properly in terms of how it, sort of man management, as you said, rather than necessarily on the pitch.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we could see him go. I think obviously we got some maybes. Obviously, Mr. Rice. I mean, that's the elephant in the room. We know that he is more likely out than in the summer. Arsenal, and I think this, in terms of the money we get for him, that's going to be most of the rebuild money, isn't it? To be honest, I mean,
I don't know. I don't know. People will think I'm ridiculous to even right. Okay, here we go. I'm 90% sure that he's out the door.
Yeah,
but I'm going to talk about the 10%.
Okay, yeah.
I want to talk about the 10% because I think that there's an element of, for someone like Declan Rice, right, who wants to make the best career for himself, to go and win stuff because he deserves to go and win stuff. He's in terms of deserving. I mean, he's that type of player. He can go on and win stuff. What he could also do though is choose a club and not win stuff.
Yeah, totally.
And that would be a bit of a disaster for him.
Mm.
And I think he needs to make sure that he's doing the right thing. And I think he will in his head go, it's the right thing for me. It's the right thing for West Ham. And it's just the right time in general. I think we're always focusing solely on the fact that he is definitely out the door. But I don't know if we stay up, and depending on the change in the summer, if there is a change in the summer, that is the 10%. The 10% is someone looking at that situation and going, right, because if they genuinely believe, which they sound like they do, that this is just West Ham underperforming dramatically and we can bring back what we had before, then with a well-averse manager, a proactive manager, and the right signings to add to what we've currently got, I don't know. I'm 90% sure he's out the door. But I think the big key element is you've got Liverpool, Arsenal, you've got to have loads of clubs sniffing around them.
Yeah.
At what point do you make that decision? At what point do you do it? Like, I don't know. I don't know who's right. Who is the right team for him? Who is? Who needs him? Who doesn't need him? They're saying Arsenal. Everyone's saying Arsenal. But what happens if Arsenal don't win the league? You know, what happens if they do win the league and then next season they have a disaster? You know, you've got, the only team right now that's offering any form of consistency is Man City. And
true, and they don't really need him at the moment.
They don't really need him, so they're not going to pay that money for him. No. So that's the Man United are still a project. So you could go to Man United and it might not work. It could be 4 or 5 years before you see something back in return. Arsenal, there's no ifs and buts about it. Arsenal's a risk. Chelsea's a risk. The only kind of one that's not a risk, that kind of isn't a risk, is Man City. That's the only way I look at it.
Yeah. No, it's true.
And do you know what? I'm saying all this. He's probably going to go and sign for Arsenal, but
yeah,
I hope he doesn't.
Well, I think I'd rather him at Arsenal than Chelsea. I'll be honest. I think, but I think for me, it's like, as you said, I think the obvious one, and unless that's the other option is abroad. You know what I mean?
I don't want him. I actually don't want him to play for any other Premier League club, mate. I'm not going to lie to you. I won't like it. I won't accept it. I won't boo him. But as long as he leaves on good terms. But I don't want to see him in an Arsenal top. I do not want to see him lift a trophy with Arsenal. I really don't. I don't want to see him lift a trophy with Chelsea. Man United, I couldn't care less. I don't have any interest in it whatsoever. I'll have to probably mute his name from every single social media site I'm on, every website I'm on if he does leave the club, because I just don't see it. Like I can't see it, and I can't envision it, and I don't want to see him win that stuff. And it pains me because he is one of the best players in our modern time.
Oh, he is. He is. I mean,
phenomenal. And we've not taken advantage of it, and that's what pisses me off.
No, and I think we should. And I think the rumor, he want, the idea was, he wanted, I think personally, if I was him, if the club had said, right, we're going to build the team around you, you're going to be the linchpin, and you're going to be that the team is going to be built around you, but it's not. And it's like he started the season doing one thing, and they've dragged him into doing something else, and they put and they put Paqueta, brought him into not alongside him, and you hang back, and Paqueta goes forward, and and I think there's been no game plan with him. I think.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting though, Russ, is again, I'm going to plug Mark Noble's book, but in the first 70 odd pages, he goes through a moment where he talks about Nigel Reo-Coker getting the captaincy of West Ham and how he was such a dynamic, technically gifted footballer who played box to box in the midfield. We all remember what Nigel Reo-Coker was like when he came to West Ham before he was made captain, but the captaincy, as Mark Noble says in his book, borderline ruined him. And he says in the book, I don't think he ever recovered from it.
Yeah, no, that's a good shout.
When I was reading it, I was thinking, I think Declan Rice can recover. But I was thinking, God, that sounds like, I was quite surprised when I read it, because I was thinking to myself, was Noble part of the whole transition of Rice becoming captain? Because if he's so blatantly said this in his book about Nigel Reo-Coker at the age he was, then surely he will. Yeah, and Mick, I know he was, but he was captain in that season as well. It was before he was captain where we really saw the best of Nigel Reo-Coker. So I don't know, mate. I'm living on 10%. There you go.
But yeah, you're right. I think that's an interesting point. I think actually it's an interesting point there's loads of comments here. Thank you so much for everyone joining us. Nil East said, for someone like, the fact is, if he goes whatever club he goes to, he's not going to be the maverick big fish in a small pond. He's going to be an average sized fish in a big pond. So if he did go to City don't need it though. But if they did go to City, he'll be playing the role he plays for England, sitting in front of the back four, just playing the ball across, spraying the diagonal balls, not really pushing forward, just doing that holding role. And I think the trouble is they won't pay that money for someone to do that job. Do you know what I mean? And so that's the trouble. And so he's a phenomenal player. And it'll be a sad day when he does go. But again, maybe he'll go. As I said, if he won a European trophy, the first player to lift a European trophy since Bobby Moore. I'm not counting Intertoto. So and the first player to lift any sort of decent silverware since Billy Bonds in 1980. Again, not counting Intertoto Cup. And so, regardless of what happens, he could go down in the history books, couldn't he?
Yeah.
So, and as long as he hasn't said, I'm off. He hasn't said, I want to leave, like publicly. I think what he's doing is as I said, I think the last couple of games, he's actually been has played like a captain. Rather than trying to do everything. I think he's almost been I think the captaincy is almost weighed down on him, and he feels like he has to do everything. He has to be the box to box. He has to run back. He has to shout at players. He has to do that. And actually, they're all professional players. They all know what they should be doing. So, anyway.
I think essentially, there's so many comments there saying Steve is saying he's going to be City bound. Rice is a different breed, 100%.
Yeah.
Ricky says Rice won't be needed to do half of what he does at West Ham at City. Rice sweeps up for so much, doing other jobs for him. The thing is, I just don't see Man City paying the money.
Nah.
When they don't essentially think they need him. It comes down to money and who needs him. I think, and we as West Ham fans will turn around and go, we absolutely think every team in the world would need a Declan Rice, but not every single team in the world will pay what we want for Declan Rice. So there are clubs out there that will do it. It's just now a case of, are Arsenal the match for Declan Rice? Will Declan Rice want to go to Arsenal? You could hear rumours around whatever you want. You can take on board whatever you want to hear. I'm not so sure he's 100% convinced about Arsenal, because I understand why he wouldn't be 100% convinced of Arsenal. Yes, they're playing well this season. Yes, they've had a project, but this time last year, Russ, the fans were
they were absolutely happy. It's the complete reverse to us last season. In all honesty, they were floundering down in the bottom of the seat, and again, I think Moyes pays a little nod to him. He talks about Arteta saying, they weren't playing very well, and they kept their manager, and then they are now.
Yeah.
So it was like
people may want to see, big players may want to see some form of consistency in an Arsenal side. So go ahead and win something this year. And if you do, then let's see what you do next year. Because I'm not, and I'm pleased take this with a pinch of salt, what I'm saying, but Leicester City did win the Premier League, albeit it was a freak incident, whatever you want to call it. And it was about what you did. Moving on with that, if you're going to try and, I know it's a different breed, I know it is, but
I know what you mean.
Essentially, what I'm trying to say is, if you're a player looking at it, I suppose you want some consistency in in a team you're going to go to. Right now, like I said, the only team that's offering that consistency is Man City. Chelsea isn't, Arsenal are not, because they could do, but they're not yet. Man United are not.
Neither. Man United could do have some consistency soon.
Yeah,
I think Ten Hag seems to be doing a good job there. But I think, I wouldn't mind seeing. I could see him at something like Real. Actually, Pat Holland just said, he could be Kroos's replacement. Tony Kroos's replacement at Real Madrid. I could see him maybe. It might be a couple of years too early for him. Again, he's a young family in it, so it's to up sticks and go to someone like that would be a big option.
I think what's interesting about West Ham is, though, we need to learn to be able to live without Declan Rice.
Yeah,
something I don't believe we. I don't think we've been able to do that in our history of having good players. We've not been able to live without our best players. So we focus so much on going, shit, like, Lego head's here.
Yeah, no, that's what. But no, Steve,
stop laughing. Sorry, mate.
Steve, let him go.
Sorry, mate.
I thought it was a good point what he was saying. He says,
Virgil, I'm sorry, mate. John, it was just a lack of sleep and just absolute. I was crying from laughter.
It was fucking.
It was funny. It was funny. But I think essentially, when it comes to West Ham, many clubs around the world, every club around the world have had to deal with getting rid of their best players. It just seems we don't know how to deal with that. And we keep doing what we're doing. We try and offer them crazy contracts. We're breaking our salary bracket to try and keep him in this team. 200 grand, and then the next player below him is 70 grand below him. Like, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. It's going to cause friction all over the place, and it's just throwing shit against the wall with the hope that the player will sign the contract. So, do you know what? Maybe the best decision, it's crazy what I'm about to say, maybe the best decision is he does go and we can live without him and invest that money. Clubs can move on from one player, because West Ham isn't all about one player. No ifs or buts about it. He's a fantastic player, and there is no place like home, but he is got one eye out the door, and
I just think he's got one eye winning things, isn't it? I don't think it's any disrespect to West Ham. It's like we've lived through this before with the likes of Joe and Lamps and Carrick and Glenn Johnson and Defoe, and these guys ended up moving. Obviously, a lot of them we got relegated, but still they went to win stuff. They don't want to be in a team that's in the relegation zone. They want to be playing a side that's competing. And I was listening to, and I don't agree with him half the time. He winds me up all the time when I see him. But I was listening to the Moose on TalkSport. He winds me up so much. Ian,
your mate,
my mate Ian, every fucking game. Russ, bit of Springsteen, no, fuck off, not tonight. But anyway, anyway, he was saying that I don't care, because he was saying basically that he had this thing about I'd rather us, if it meant we go down, but we won the Conference League, I'd take that. Because football's about winning. Even if it was an egg cup, I want us to win it. And I think it is about winning trophies. It is about it's not about being a team which finishes 15th each season. Well done. That's not what a professional football player goes into being going into a career. He goes into the cup finals. He goes into wanting to be competing at the highest level. And so if he wants to do that and we can't offer it to him, then fair enough.
Yeah.
Then fair enough. Yeah. And I think, to be honest, all this could easily change with a change of manager potentially comes in with a different ethos and stuff like that. So this is just as we stand at the moment. Cotty to Everton. Good shout. Great shout that was. Yeah. I mean, look at that. That didn't turn out sort of all right for him. But he came back. Another player that we could potentially lose in the summer is, and the guy who's actually had a couple of run of games, I think more games than we thought he was going to do, to be honest, is Mr. Ogbonna, is the Ogfather himself. I mean, his contract comes to the end. Obviously, we offered him a one year extension at the end of last season because he was injured, basically. It was like a goodwill gesture, some may say, but he's come back and played a lot more games than I thought we all thought he was going to play. He comes to his end of his contract this summer, There's no option. There's no contractual option for us to give him another year or two. He wants to stay, by the sounds of it. But obviously, again, we're in a situation where we can't necessarily offer him a new contract yet because we don't know what fucking league we're going to be in. So
I don't know where I'm at. I don't know where I'm at with Oggy, mate. I'm conflicted. I've got a long history of being a hater.
Yeah.
I don't hate the guy. I've just disliked his style of play, but I can't remotely deny Fushizi, man. I can love this guy.
He's in the stream yesterday as well. I forgot to tell you.
Love this guy, man. I love this guy. Honestly, I love that guy.
Yeah.
So I've got a history of saying, you know, I was never a fan, but I can't remotely deny that he's stepped into, you know, when we've needed him, and he's stepped up to the plate, absolutely. And I kind of maybe do agree with what John's saying there about him being kept as a player coach, but I'm not sure that would be the right thing. I don't know if he is that sort of player. Obviously he's a big character. He's a big, you know, he's a big. You can see what he does in the dressing room. You can see how big a character and how much loved he is, but. I don't know, man. I don't know if this is just is this just old typical West Ham, you know,
sentimental
holding on to a player for the sake of hold on to it.
Yeah.
Is he coach material, as Mickey Ruff has just said? I don't know. Only West Ham will know. I'd be tempted, Russ, to say ciao in the nicest possible
very good, because he's Italian as well. Very good. Yeah. I agree what John said. I mean, we look. I think one of the biggest losses for us this season is Craig Dawson, and Mark Noble. I mean, obviously Nobes, but I think Dawson leaving, and you can see the effect he's had on Wolves already in the Wolves fan base. They love him already.
No wonder.
I mean, yeah, exactly. But
I still love him.
Yeah, me too. But what happens is, you know, would we have the same thing with Oggy? You know, is that that's another big name, big voice out of the dressing room? But maybe it's one of the old guard. Do you know what I mean? Steve makes a good shout. Sentimental has to go. You know, is it? I think we've given him the 1 year contract almost as a sentimental thing. Probably not even assuming that he'll get many games this season. In all honesty, he's come back from a massive ACL injury, and so, you know, I think he's almost surprised us. We'll stay if we stay up. He'll end his career at West Ham. Well, that's what he said. He has said that West Ham will be his last contract. I don't think he'll go back to Serie A. So he wants to finish his career at West Ham. So again, it's something which we could potentially lose in the summer because of the contracts.
If it's I agree with that comment. If it's sentiment, then no. If there's a genuine pathway for him, I don't see why keeping him next year without offering him a coaching role does West Ham any good, to be honest, because having the long-term injury that he's had, can't deny he stepped in and, you know, his colossal performance against Fulham with Zuma, you know, was huge. But I think with certain players, there's a time to move on, and I don't think he would be in the plans of a new manager that comes in the door, to be honest. I really don't think he would be. And again, I get it. I'm just giving you my opinion.
No, yeah. No, I know. I mean,
saying there, but
and also, I mean, go on. You go.
I was just going to say, like, I think if it was like a Craig Dawson type of player, then that's different. And I know, you know, I know he's not been at the club as long, but if we could have just resolved the Craig Dawson situation, then I would have absolutely kept Craig Dawson past this year, absolutely, and he would then become what Ginge became, you know, the backup, but the man in the dressing room who would do what he needed to do, all that sort of stuff. But anyway, I don't know.
I think with Oggy as well. I think with Oggy, one of the things which, you know, is Oggy. I mean, you know, think about it. Next year, hopefully, we've got some fit centre backs. Oggy maybe third choice, maybe fourth choice. You know, you've got Luizao. You've got Casey in the under-18s, you know, pathway. Thinking about the under-18s pathway, would having Oggy around stop someone like Casey developing? Because he wouldn't get necessarily any of the Carabao Cup games. It would be Oggy, you know, and wheeled out. I think there's a strange thing with Oggy. I think it's going to be. Look at the ethos in and around the youth, all ex-players. Totally right, John. Totally right.
Interestingly, yeah. But again, I'm going to say something to you though about that. You know, there are a lot of ex-players. I think there's only one player, from my understanding, who's not from Britain. In our coaching team, who's an ex-pro. Correct me if I'm wrong here. You've got Zavon Hines. You've got Carlton Cole.
Yep.
You've got. I'm just trying to think of the more modern players that have come into the setup. Who've got Jimmy Walker. Who else, Russ?
But he's in the women's. I mean, you got Kenny Brown, Mark Robson, Stevie Potts. Yeah, Stevie Potts. You've got Zavon. You haven't got. I mean, you haven't got anyone who's a foreign-based player. I don't think in that setup.
Well, it doesn't make sense what I've said. I'm just trying to think. I wonder if there's but I just wonder if there's probably been a lot of foreign players that have been interested, but there's maybe a reason why West Ham haven't taken them on, because you said there maybe there's a language barrier. I don't think there's a language barrier with
no, not
with Oggy. Maybe I've just gone down a really weird route.
Maybe just anyway. Let's move on. He may well be offered a new 1-year deal, but at the moment he's got nothing at the moment. So he could be out the door. Another one's Cress. Cress comes to it. Is another one who's out of contract this season in the summer. No option contractually on him. So for me, this one speaks better English than Russ. For me, I think Cress is one that I could see out the door. Not a problem.
Yeah, I think. You know what? What a servant to the club, though.
Great servant. I mean, 300. We'll go through him. He's over 300 games for the club. He's been here since 2014, I think, wasn't it? Something like 14, 15, something like that. And 33 now. His legs are gone as a left back. Obviously, he did a bit of a renaissance under Moyes when he went to the back three, and he played left centre back of a back three. But I think out of all of the ones, I think this is the one who I could see just going, not a problem.
Yeah,
I don't think he'd affect it. I think he will then let someone like Ollie Scarles be able to be pushed into the.
I've started something here now. I've started something.
What's that?
Chris speaks terrible English.
That's it. All right. We just have to put the piece. Let's just hang on. Let's just put the pieces together of what John's just been saying.
I think, yeah. Do you know what? Great servant. But yeah, I think time to go, definitely.
Yeah,
it's just about who's going to be his replacement if he does go. I know we're saying Emerson, but
well, I think that's one area we have to target in the summer.
I think we will target that area. Yeah.
I think you've got Ollie Scarles as backup. I think that's part of the pathway.
Again, though, it goes back to, if we do get a new manager, so let's just play on the side of that's what's going to happen.
Okay. Yeah.
Then, I think Scarles has a chance at getting some game time. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely think a chance to get some game time.
I think Scarles does. I think Cress has got the natural progression where he could go into the coaching setup. His mate is director, is sporting director now. Yeah. And so, yes, there we go. You see, I could see him transitioning.
Do you know what? I probably do agree with that one. I think he could be one of the old guard that could do that. He may get a cheeky extension on the basis that he'll be complete and utter backup.
Yeah. That's his role. That's his role.
Do. That's what you're going to do. You're going to enter the coaching world. You've been at the club. I mean, when did he sign for the club?
14, 15 season, someone said, a bit higher up.
Yeah. I mean, the guy's nearly been here 10 years and,
he's got his family down here and all that type of thing as well, and so it's...
I don't even know if he'll be out, to be honest. I think he might be in.
He might be offered an extension. I mean, I can... again, I think it's that something like Cress is dependent, I think, on the manager comes in. If we get an Arnie Slot, for example, from Feyenoord, or someone like that comes in, young progressive manager. Cresswell is very much an old pro. I could see, and there's so many good left backs on free transfers in the summer. You've got Alex Grimaldo from Benfica. You've got Guerrero from Borussia Dortmund, and there's loads more anyway. So someone like that you could pick up on a free transfer, so to speak. And then I think Cress is probably redundant, because then I think you've got Emerson, a new left back, or even if you buy a left back, I mean, what's his face? Borna Sosa hasn't gone anywhere, and that's someone we were looking at as well in the summer. Someone like him coming in would be amazing. And then his third choice, and he's thinking, well, I'd rather have Ollie Scars as my third choice than Cress. But we'll see. It'll be interesting. Could be great.
Oh no! This one, where is it? I'm trying to put it up. Can't stockpile coaching staff.
Yeah, exactly. We just keep them back.
Just because we like them, we're just like, yeah, just bring them in the coach.
You can be in the coaching staff. I've got 2 more Kenny Brown turns up for training. You got 2 more coaches. What? We haven't got enough year groups. They'll be like
the year is 2040, and Russ finally retires as the DJ from West Ham. Anyway, Russ, come in the coaching staff.
Yeah, come in the coaching. Come in the coaching. More welcome. Just sweep up afterwards. Yeah,
Tommy's in the house. You're back from work, mate. Hope you're well.
Back from work. Hope you're well, my friend. Right. Okay. So the next one, in terms of out the door, and this one we actually do have an option on him. We have a 2-year option. He's Vladimir Coufal. His current contract comes to the end this summer. We do have a 2-year option we can take on him. There was by Leverkusen. We're interested in him in January, and they are still interested in him apparently for the summer as well. I mean, we may well take the 2-year option, because I think he's our best right back we got, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't see him going.
I'm annoyed at myself for having any form of doubt in the man.
Yeah.
I really am, because I really did. I thought that was him done. But I think he's come back in and been a bit of a solid performer and getting forward, and we all know what he's capable of doing. I mean, listen, see, if it wasn't for him against Fulham, it was his determination, it was his fight, it was his grit, it was his ability to get forward that chased that ball down right on the corner flag, and then he pulled the ball back to Jared Bowen. I think it was Jared Bowen, wasn't it? It was. Sorry, yeah. He crossed the ball and it took a deflection, went back to Jared Bowen, who then took a shot, and then it took a deflection, went in. But that was prime Coufal. That was prime Vladimir Coufal, and he's showing again recently what he is capable of doing. I think he's the sort of player that reminds me of a little bit like Fornals. He understands the culture of West Ham. He understands West Ham. He seems to love West Ham, and he likes having. I mean, I know we're probably going to talk about his mate in a minute, but he likes having his mates around.
We're not actually talking about his mate, but we can talk about his mate as well, because obviously he's not one that's. Well, I mean, we'll go through everyone who's contractually could leave in the summer, and then we've talked about Declan Rice, because that's obviously sort of a open secret. But we'll talk about his mate a bit later on, I think, but potentially.
I think what's interesting about Coufal will be, in my honest opinion, will be who is the boss in the summer.
Yeah.
I think under David Moyes, Vlad stays. I think under any other manager, it's 50-50. I genuinely believe that. I think we may think keep him because of the reasons why most people are saying. But I think that it could be dependent on what a new manager thinks. If you've got a young, enthusiastic, forward-thinking manager who wants to bring the average age of the club down dramatically, then that's one way to start doing it. And I'm not just for the sake of that. But
fullbacks are one of the areas we need drastic reinforcements in. It's something which we haven't bought. We haven't technically bought a recognised right back. Obviously, we're talking. We've been linked with Wan-Bissaka. We've been linked with Max Aarons. We've been linked with Walter Peters if Southampton go down. So they are all very different from Vladimir Coufal in terms of how they play. They play like a modern fullback. The modern fullback is basically an auxiliary winger. And anyone who comes in, we will not, if we get a new manager in, he will not be a David Moyes type manager rather. He'll be a younger manager. He'll be a more progressive manager, because that's what we'll get. That's what we get. Even if you got a Rodgers or a Potter, they are more progressive than David Moyes is. If you get an Arnie Slot, if you get a Carrick or someone like that, you're going to get someone in who's a modern footballer, a modern sort of brain on his head in terms of football. So I think Vlad is very much an old guard, and I think it showed when we played Fulham, when Moyes needed to put a side together. Who did he pick? Everyone that he's had for the last 2.5 years. Apart from Danny Ings, but he's a professional. He's like a Premier League. He knows the things. So everyone else, none of the new signings were anywhere near that starting 11.
Yeah, but there's a but though.
What's your but?
But is that we soaked up shitloads of pressure, and defensively we were colossal. Moving forward, we were nothing. So I think that's that's how the game was going to get won. That's what they did.
Yeah.
But I don't want to see that moving forward. I'm not interested.
But that's what I mean. It's as you said. I think you're right. If Moyes is still in the dugout in the summer, then Coufal's 2 years gets added on.
Yeah.
Because he trusts him, and when he needs that sort of that result, he will put out all of his generals.
Yeah,
and so and they were all out. They're all out on display. Even Cresswell, who you and me didn't think we're going to get a look in. I thought he'd start in Europe. I thought he wouldn't get a chance. Emerson was playing really well, really hard done by, I think. But anyway, so that's so but I think he'll get offered.
Just for your reference, I've been doing a couple of the polls on YouTube as well. So when it came to Ogbonna, it was 50-50 in and out. 50% in and out. Cressy in and out, 92% saying out in the chat. And I've just done one for Coufal, and 87% are saying in.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Let's talk about Scamacca. Obviously, we had the sad news today that pretty much he's going to be out for the season. He's got a knee operation tomorrow or tonight. No, it's not tomorrow yet. Saturday night, he's got a knee operation. Obviously, the rehabilitation that Moyes said the 2 weeks obviously didn't work. And so they're obviously going to be doing something to his knee to try and sort it all out once and for all. So you will not see him this season, I don't think, now for the rest of the season, unfortunately. I think Zuma was 2 months out, wasn't he, with his knee operation? So even the best will of the world, even if it's 6 weeks, he's still not going to be back by the end of the season with 6 weeks left of the season left. Now, obviously, it's been a rocky start. It's a rocky start for him. Obviously, he's changed management as well. He's gone from One Global. He's gone to CAA Stella. Obviously, his previous ones were very much Italian-based players from Serie A. Stella are more Premier League and Bundesliga. I wouldn't see too much into that, but obviously he's changed management, and a number of Italian clubs are sniffing around for him in the summer. Would you buy a player that's just had a knee operation? I don't know, but I think under Moyes it's not working. Hasn't been working. I think he's unhappy and looking to move on. If probably Moyes is still in charge, I think that's basically the narrative we've been led to believe.
I think 100%. I think if a new manager comes in, he stays, and he may be everything that we've anticipated and thought he would be. If Moyes stays, then he'll go 100%. I think he's do you know what? I'm not even going to say it. I don't think he's a confidence player. I actually think he is a good footballer. I think he is. I think he's a great player on his day. And I don't think he's a kind of Ben Rama. Ben Rama's a confidence player. Scamacca is not a confidence player. Scamacca can play, but Scamacca can't and not. Listen, let's get this right here. Please tell me in the current regime of our owners, what striker has been successful at our club? That's because we have not played in any way whatsoever the style of football that suits any striker that comes in. And that's kind of weird, actually. It's quite odd. I'm not saying that I'm just expecting a striker to score a minimum of 10 goals or 11 goals, or not just Antonio, but I'm talking about maybe 15 goals or whatever. But I think he's got to stay and give. The fact that the news today about him going for the injury, I know Diafra Sacco, I know that, but I think I'm probably meaning more consistently. And it's not a good record with our strikers, but
no, it's not. And I mean, the thing that really gets me and really gets my goat is, he's come out and Moyes has come out and said, when he talked about Danny Ings, he's not a player who you play up front on his own.
And then plays him up front on his own.
And he doesn't make any difference. So it's like, well, you're not playing to his strengths. And so I think that's the same thing with Scamacca. You look like Haller, obviously, before he got ill, but obviously he's back. But, moved to another club, shows he went on that silly, stupid record, scored more, that record in terms of Champions League goals in consistent games or something like that. He's got the record for that. He's scored an absolute hatful of goals for Ajax. Went to Dortmund but obviously before his illness was scoring for fun under obviously former West Ham coach. And it just shows you, this guy, if he went to Italy, he'd start banging him in again. He goes to any other club, he's going to start banging him in again. You don't.
I think the problem you've got with a player, exactly, and I think the problem you've got with him though it could be his mindset. So if he wants to leave the club, no matter what manager, then that's going to be something,
Yeah.
So
yeah, you're totally right. You're totally right. Bless you. But you're right. I mean, as you said, like you look at our successful goal scorers over the last 3 years, it is Antonio and it is someone like Arnautovic.
Is there a tooth joke here? Have you told people I've been at the dentist?
Yeah, I told them you had a problem yesterday. I told them you had your 2:30. Yeah. Got a brace, get his teeth into it. There we go. But no, so for me, it's like I think a new manager comes in, and again, this is all sort of theoretical. Scamacca stays. Simple. I think and it could be Mancini. That's someone who's been linked to. He's wanted to come back to the Premier League. He wants to come back and work on a project to the Premier League. So realistically, you're looking at who the clubs around it. Leicester, maybe, if they still stay up, because obviously used to play for them. Us, Palace. So it's we're in the mix there.
If only it was just a bloody fill-in, Peter.
Oh,
this is quite a depressing comment in the nicest possible way, Phil.
Yeah.
In NFL terms, Moyes is a great defensive coordinator, not head coach. Attack has sucked all this season. It's so true.
It's true. I mean, obviously NFL you do have, and they sack the defensive coaches like every other week, or the offense coach, as and when they don't play. So, what about Mick McCarthy? He left Blackpool. He's left Blackpool, hasn't he? Because wasn't Warburton linked with that job? But he's gone. Won't pay for Mancini. Obviously, Mancini still has a contract with Italy until 2026. So, I mean, obviously, we haven't spoken about Thomas Souček. We haven't spoken about people like that. Obviously, likes of Paqueta. Obviously, Arsenal were linked to him as well. And Newcastle were linked with Paqueta, but I think that's a little bit different. These are the ones who I think are the immediate ones who could be leaving in the summer. So with that, that's 8. That's 9 players potentially. I don't think we'll lose all 9. But you said about the games. I mean, there's a hell of a lot of games those guys have played for West Ham.
Yeah. I could easily see 5 minimum of them leaving the club, and that's another big transition for us as well. I mean, listen, I don't know what to believe anymore. Sullivan going, Sullivan staying, Kretinsky buying, Kretinsky not buying. This summer, let's get safe. Let's try and win something. Let's get safe, and then this summer could be one of the biggest summers of our lifetime as a West Ham fan. Or
didn't we say that last year as well? I'm pretty sure you and me definitely.
I think we said it on the basis of the fact that we had to. We knew we were going to sign players.
Yeah.
But this is different in terms of if there is new ownership, if there is a new manager. Like, we can't have a manager that comes like for like. We can't. There's no point. It's not working.
No.
You said it earlier on there about Danny Ings. He says 1 week, we know how to play to the strengths. We can't play to the strength of Danny Ings right now. And then you plays him up top himself again the following week. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. It needs to be a forward-thinking manager. I think people get frustrated at that. I don't think it's in. It just shows the players are paying attention to the boss. They must have some form of respect to the boss because they're listening to him. So unless they are just utterly bollocks and can't play football, and it isn't.
That's not the case. It's not. But I think there is. It is. The players have underperformed this season. That is true. I mean, Bowen has not got 10 goals and 10 assists, and he hasn't played a different position. They haven't given him a different position. He's not playing left back or anything. He's playing the same position he's played. He hasn't played well this season. He played himself off the plane to Qatar. And since then, he's seen a little bit of renaissance since the new year. But he played himself out of that England squad. He could have, if the squad was picked in the summer, he would have probably been on the plane. Because he was last year, double figures for goals and assists. This year, nowhere near it. I mean, so I think. Go on, Karen.
No, I was just going to say, like, when you look at that, when you look at the images there, can you bring them up without the games they've played? Just when you look at those players, right? We're talking about so Lanzini. I'll tell you what I'm going to say here: Lanzini, Declan Rice, Antonio, Ogbonna, Cresswell, Coufal, Fabianski. 7 players, right, that played for West Ham back in 2020.
Yeah,
And during a season where we were struggling and had to get the bounce of a new manager coming in, and albeit we called upon our old manager to come in, and it was successful and it worked the following season as well. But we're still here talking about a lot of the old guard players. We're still here in the same situation. I mean, we've not even mentioned Tommy Soucek. We've not mentioned all the other players in the team that have been here for several years as well. But this is the situation. We bought big in the summer, probably bought too many too quickly. We should have spread that out. We should have learned our lessons, Russ, from before. Simple as that. We've done it once before. We signed a lot of players, 8 players, and the following season was a bit of a disaster.
We've done it before. We exactly. Yeah. We did it under Slav, didn't we? We moved to the London Stadium.
Yeah.
We tried. It didn't work, but I mean, the guys we brought in. I think what was different this summer was the guys we brought in were on paper quality players.
Yeah.
But it was just too many of them. I think that was the case. It was too many, too late. And you've spoken about before. Scamacca took him weeks before he got into the first team.
Never. That one frustrates me more than anything. He should have started immediately. He should be playing. He should have walked in the first day at West Ham against Man City and played that game. Absolutely. There's your experience. That's how you bed yourself into a team. I'm sorry, and I don't buy it, and I know I'm not a football coach, and I know I'm not a football manager, but unfortunately, Moyes hasn't proven to be right with Scamacca. So he's been wrong with Scamacca. Therefore, the opposite to that is he plays from the start, and he should have played from the start. He was the one player that I think we could have. He just could have kickstarted his career quicker and earlier, and it could have had a positive impact on him. He may not have went ahead and picked up that virus. He may have done something a little bit different. He may have not got the injury that he got. He's been in and out of the side all year, all season. He's going to end up the season with what? How many Premier League goals? 3 or 4? 3?
3. I think 3 Premier League goals. I think he scored 8 or 9 this season. Yeah, something like that.
It's just it's so bloody frustrating, to be honest, that he's not featured from the start. And I think that man management of him hasn't been great, but I think generally man management of some of the players hasn't been great. And like you said, Russ, before, we shouldn't be in a situation where we find ourselves out of contract with 9 players or whatever there is there. I don't think all 9 of them are out of contract.
No, not no.
I think we've got a lot that are out of contract. We dealt with some of that. Yeah, we dealt with some of that in the summer or the winter there. But we've never really went out and replaced Dawson. We've never went out and got players in several positions that we desperately need, and that's why I think there's going to be big changes. And I can't believe I'm saying the stuff I've been saying, because I've been Moyes in most of this season, thinking at some point, keep dreaming, probably in dreamland, going, he's going to take. This is the week he's going to change it, Russ. This is the week he's going to change it.
Yeah, but that's inherently about West Ham. And I mean, people have called me out for being deluded, but we're all deluded as West Ham fans because we've won fuck all for 40 years. But every year we think we're going to fancy ourselves in the cup. But for the last 40 times, it hasn't happened. So why is it going to happen 41? And so I think that's just inherently being West Ham. Some people have that slightly dialed up a little bit more. I think you may have it dialed a little bit more up than others, but we all have that sort of delusional, whether it's 5% or 80% or 100%, because we still turn up and we'll still watch the games and we'll still cheer on the team, thinking this year's going to be our year, guys. But I think the trouble is, for me, it's all about, as you said, and you said it quite early on in the show. Whatever happens in the dugout needs to be sorted, literally, end of the season. Is he going? Is he staying? Who's coming in? Who's got, so because then we can start planning, because I think we don't want, and people have said, oh, why are you talking about rumours and because they are still scouting players now, regardless of who's in whoever's in the dugout, they're scouting players. So if Moyes is still in the dugout, they've got the players there. If it's someone else in the dugout, they've got the dossiers of the players they've seen already. Rob Newman, highly respected recruitment manager, head of recruitment at City and stuff as well. He can say, look, I've been looking at Orkham from Feyenoord. I don't think it's a coincidence we've been linked with Arnie Slot, the Feyenoord manager, recently, and we've been looking at 2 of his players. There we go. Just and I think there's not a coincidence there, in my opinion. Okay, right, here we go. Here's a good question because I don't actually know the answer from you. Moyes, okay, theoretically, Moyes retires in the summer. Who you having? Who's in the dugout for Baker? Because I don't think I've actually asked you that question ever.
Right now,
yeah,
I'm going to say Potter.
Oh,
I don't. I'm saying Potter because he edges it because he's got Premier League experience.
Yeah.
I would want to do a little bit more research on some of the European managers. What I am definitely saying to you is Brendan Rodgers is an absolute no-go. I have not a single amount of interest in bringing Brendan Rodgers in. But what I will say to you is if our ownership is still there, he's probably going to be our next manager.
I can see that. I can see that. As you said, but by all accounts, Potter, I think X said it that he they thought Potter was only good because of Bison's supercomputer or something like that in terms of players he's brought in, which unfortunately gives you the perception of what they said. I think realistically, I think you're probably right. I think someone like Rodgers is someone they have a bit of a boner for, by all accounts.
No. This is what I'll say about Rodgers, right? I asked a lot of Celtic fans what the situation was with Rodgers. Yeah. Now, we all know him from Swansea. We all know him from Liverpool. A lot of fans might not necessarily know him from Celtic. I don't watch Scottish football at all. People might find that a surprise, but I really don't. However, I've got a lot of friends who do, and I found out a lot about him. And what they say is he's very good at working with players that he does not buy.
Nice.
Okay. That's why when he first comes into a club, he tends to do quite well. When he gets his hands on the club and starts to buy his own players, that's when things start to go to rot for him. And that has kind of been proven at Leicester. He's not learned how to spend the money well. He's not bought well. He's not progressed them any further than what he did when he first came in. He got a bounce off them. They done reasonably well at the start. So and Graham Potter, I think also we need to remember at one point a couple of seasons ago, Brighton fans were calling for his head.
Yeah,
he did turn them round. And we have to give the new manager at Brighton a lot of credit because he's taken what Potter's done and driven on and bought players as well. But I think what essentially, if I'm looking at the manager now, I need to do more research on the European managers because I think there must be someone out there that would could definitely come in and do a job for us. But if we're going to bring them in, they need to be given the tools and the time to implement their style. I think with Potter, I'm intrigued about Potter. I quite like what Potter's done. I think people agree with him. I think he could be a little bit broken from the Chelsea situation, but it was only 7 months, so I think there's maybe still enough in the tank there. I think he's gone to a club. Do you know what? A manager like Potter needs to go away and do what he's done with Chelsea. I'm glad he's done it with Chelsea, not with West Ham. So, do you know what? He's lived a dream as a manager. There's 400 million quid. Go and spend it.
Yeah.
Potter's probably going to look at that last 7 months and go, fuck doing that again. I have no interest in that again. I want to actually be the proper coach that I am because that is what he is. So I think there's an element that he could be that coach as well. I don't want Brendan Rodgers, mate. I have no interest in Brendan Rodgers, and I'm scared it's going to be him if Moyes goes.
Well, I think we did a thing the other day. I went through the odds, and I think obviously Chris has said Benitez, but I think Benitez was the reason why he wasn't going to be manager is because he wants a 3.5-year contract. So they don't want to offer him a 3.5-year contract. So yeah, I think people have been saying, I think Will still. I don't think Will's going to come. I mean, we know firsthand that Will is that Rem are really fucked off with him at the moment because of all the West Ham links. So from the horse's mouth, from Will himself, he's told me that basically Rem are really fucked off. So he can't talk about West Ham anytime soon. But yeah, I mean, he's obviously a progressive manager. Michael Carrick is a name we've been linked to, obviously, as well. Could satisfy maybe West Ham fans. got Premier League experience. Obviously, he's got managerial experience, some in the Premier League with Man United, who was caretaker manager, West Ham player. But there isn't a massive number of club like players who have gone on. You look at Lampard, Gerrard, Scott Parker. These guys just haven't done well as managers, and I worry for Carrick. I mean, I know just because I just think I don't know. He just seems, but maybe he's a different type of player. Maybe he wouldn't get. He never really played to the level that we wanted him to play in terms of England. He was always overlooked, wasn't he, by Lampard and Gerrard?
Yeah. The name keeps appearing up right now. Here's where I'm at with Benitez. I don't want Benitez, but there's something about Benitez that makes me think that he would come to West Ham and probably be quite similar to David Moyes in terms of being quite successful for about a season and a half.
Yeah.
And then it would implode.
And then we go through the same cycle again, innit?
And we go through the same cycle again. And that's what I want to avoid. So I think that there could be that manager bounce and you get maybe a season out of his flamboyant style that sometimes he has played in his career as a manager. But I don't think that's the long-term solution. I think we need to look at the long-term solution. And I think that's maybe why the board have maybe just held off. Thinking...
I think so, yeah.
I think they've maybe thought, if we're going to take the risk now, let's not take the risk and keep the risk of the manager we've currently got. That's the risk. So either way was a risk. So they've just done that. And with the mindset, if it is the current board, that they're going to try and do the future. Brendan Rodgers, to me, is not the future. So if they bring him in, then that goes against everything I've said. Yeah. But I don't know.
I think
will they bring in a manager like Michael Carrick? Will they? Would they do that?
I think for me, looking at what's been said and what's been said in the media by people like Mark Noble, who's a current, obviously, employee of West Ham, he talks about this pathway. He talks about development of the under-18s. So therefore, you need a manager who's going to be open to talking, open about the youth team, bringing them in, who's worked with youth team players, who knows the sensitivities of doing that. So I don't think you're going to get a Benitez coming in because that goes against it, because that'd be a 3.5 year, and we'll be doing this in 3 years' time. Everyone will be moaning to get Benitez out because he's not progressive, he's not putting the youth team. So I think you would have, by what Noble's been saying in the press, you would need someone like, as you said, something like a Potter. For me, it might be a Carrick or Arnie from Feyenoord. I think he would be a great one for us. I think he's doing great stuff at Feyenoord, and he's bringing lots of youth team players through, and he's developing players. And he's 40 years old. He looks like Kojak. He's got no hair, but we don't care. And I think he could be a really interesting one to look at. I think Will's still a bit green. I think we wouldn't pay the 25 grand. I don't know what the equivalent is in terms of per game. But I mean, he did a masterclass thing. I know on YouTube about it was fascinating listening to how he talks about how they got a result away to PSG when they brought a Neymar and what he did tactically. It was phenomenal. But no, I think for me, I'm going to say Carrick for me. I reckon. What we got here? Even heard Kerbishes. No, that was just thrown out. That was ridiculous. Trophy Mourinho for me. No, because we'll be here moaning in the same thing. Lou McCarthy needs another chance. There we go. Steve Bruce is too busy filming Mrs. Doubtfire 2 or Mrs. Doubtfire the musical, which is out in the West End soon. Arnie Slot runs a pub fruit machine business in the south. He does. Yeah, Arnie Slot. It does sound a bit made up. But yeah, I don't think Will is nowhere near. People say Will still. I think. Nowhere near. Which is, maybe a couple of years' time, maybe. But put your money in Arnie Slot. There we go. Steve says. Paul Ince is looking for a job. Yeah, he's still at Reading. Or has he been sacked yet?
Could you imagine?
He's still at Reading, isn't he, I think. Or get Frank Lampard. He'll be out of job in the summer. All being forgiven. Although apparently his name was mentioned as a caretaker once in passing. God. But anyway. Well, that's been fun.
Good God.
That's been fun. That's been fun tonight, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been good fun, actually. Really enjoyed it. I hope if you are new around here, of course, hit that little cheeky subscribe button. We're on the march towards 20,000 subscribers. We're close to 16. I did say to you at the start of the season, Russ, I didn't think we'd get I always had that dream of 20. at the start of the year, you were like, nah,
Yeah.
it's not going to happen. It could happen. It could happen.
At the end of the year, it could happen.
Yeah.
We're only in April.
Yeah.
And if you want to become a channel member, hit the channel member button and help Anton buy a mic stand. He's going to get it. It's not me. It's the.
I'm not spending the money next. I'm spending the money in this man bun. That's what I'm doing.
What are you spending it on?
The man bun.
Yeah, but on what? On hair ties?
Just do not. Yes, and do not be jealous, Russ, because you have no hair.
That's
you cannot grow one.
Right. Speaking of channel members, we didn't do it.
Let's not change the subject. Russ, when are you growing your man bun?
Never, because I can't have any. Because I need a haircut, which is a bit of a joke.
You need a haircut.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Why don't you grow a chin bun then?
Yeah, I'll grow a chin bun. Chin bun. So anyway, as I was saying, we didn't do our draw this afternoon because my thing just ran. Yeah, I am doing the draw now. Thank you very much. So what we do, so anyone who's a channel member gets automatically entered into the draw every month. We do a draw, memorabilia, that sort of thing. Next month and in June, we've got a really cool prize, haven't we?
Yes. Can I just add something to this before you do this? Tuesday, I believe, there's a bit of an announcement coming on the channel.
Yeah.
So join us for that. We're going to do a little shake up as well. So we're going to push some stuff into the membership program.
Yeah.
And keep, a lot of the cool stuff. We're just trying to give something back to the members as well. So
yeah.
Part of being on the membership program was because so many people reached out to us about it. So that's why we did it. So we're going to do that a little bit more moving forward. But join us on Tuesday night where we'll be giving you a new update. I suppose you call it a channel update. Is that what you call it? I don't.
Yeah, channel. I mean, I don't like doing the channel updates, but it is. It's an announcement, isn't it? It's we're shaking it up a little bit, and some new faces, and there'll be. Oh, there we go. £10 from Foshizi for Russ's chin bun and Mike Anton's mic stand fun. There we go. Thank you very much.
You don't need to do that.
You're a legend. So, as I said, anyone who's a channel member gets into the draw. So, you'll see if you're not a channel member because you haven't got a nice little crossed hammers by your name. And today will be a Tony Cottee. There he is. Tony Cottee signed notebook. These notebooks are available on Amazon. Just look for West Ham Retro Notebooks. Not sponsored, but this is signed by TC himself, and this will go to one lucky member next month in May, and in June we have signed West Ham shirts from the squad, which will be going. So that's cool. So for a couple of quid a month, you get entered into that draw, and you could win a signed shirt next month and the month afterwards. And I've got them over there. I won't show you because that's what happened this morning. I took my earphones off and my whole screen just went blank for some reason.
I know.
I was like, what the fuck? Anyway, so I had no idea what that happened. So let's run it and see who wins this one. So if you want to get involved and become a channel member, hit the join button down there. And as I said, you'll have more exclusive content. And also, you'll be entering these draws every month.
And before this lands on it, tomorrow we've got all the start of the match day-ish content, match day before content, before the Arsenal game to join us. Anyway, who's going to land on? It's going to land on Anthony, isn't it? West Ham faithful. No. Tales of unexpected. Budgie.
Go on, Joan. Be Joan. Joan would be nice. Go on. Is it going to be Joan?
Is it still moving? Oh no, what's it going to do?
Oh, just. Joan.
We shouldn't say that. That's
well done, Joan. Well done, Joan. No, because I think Paul's won one before anyway, so it's nice. I think Budgie's won one as well. Yeah. So anyway, so Joan, if you can email us at westhamnetwork@gmail.com. But we'll see when you're on the chat. We'll make sure you're aware of it anyway. So, and we'll get that posted out to you. And yeah, we'll start with the content for the game. We'll have match day morning on Sunday morning and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, that'll do, I think.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. Hope you've enjoyed it. Tommy will be back next Friday, hopefully, with the late show with Tommy. But it was a good, enjoyable show. So thank you very much.
Yeah. And hopefully we'll have qualified for the semi-finals by the time Tommy's on. Let's hope. Anyway, take care, everyone. Stay safe. Sweet dreams, one and all. Oh, and see you guys very, very soon. Ciao, ciao. Bye-bye.